Our story begins in a small, picturesque town in Germany's Black Forest, a place of deep-rooted traditions and rigid expectations. Here we meet Hans Giebentath, a boy of remarkable intelligence and a deeply sensitive, poetic nature. Hans is not just a child. He is the town's collective project, their single greatest hope for prestige. His father, Herr Giebentath, a merchant and agent, sees in Hans the academic success he himself never achieved. The town pastor, the schoolmaster, and other local dignitaries all view Hans as their prized pupil. They have invested all their pride and ambitions in him. There is only one goal for Hans, a single, narrow path to glory. He must pass the land examen. This is a notoriously difficult state examination, and passing it grants entry into the prestigious Protestant seminary at Maulbronn. This seminary is the first step on a guaranteed path to becoming a respected theologian or academic, a life of comfort and honor. Hans's childhood is sacrificed for this goal. While other boys run through the fields, swim in the river, or simply play, Hans is confined to his desk. His life becomes a relentless schedule of Greek, Latin, Hebrew, and mathematics. He is naturally bright, but his true self is a dreamer. He finds peace in nature, in the quiet contemplation of fishing, in the feel of the wind in the forest. This softer, more creative side of him is systematically suppressed. It is seen as a distraction, a weakness. The adults around him, whom he trusts, convince him that success in the exam is the only thing in the world that matters. Love, nature, and play are secondary concerns, perhaps even obstacles. Hans internalizes this immense pressure. He develops a crippling fear of failure, not just for himself, but for the shame it would bring upon his father and his entire town. He studies until his body rebels. He is plagued by severe headaches, exhaustion, and nervous fatigue. He has become a finely tuned studying machine, but the boy inside is breaking. After a final, agonizing push, Hans succeeds. He passes the examination, ranking second in the state. His town erupts in celebration. He is hailed as a hero, a genius. His father is overcome with pride. For a brief summer, Hans is allowed a moment of rest before his new life begins. He tries to reconnect with the nature he loves, but he finds he has forgotten how to simply be. He has forgotten how to be a child. In the autumn, Hans is sent off to the Maulbronn Seminary. The school is housed in a beautiful, ancient monastery, but its atmosphere is one of rigid, oppressive discipline. This is not a place for nourishing young minds. It is a factory for churning out obedient pastors and academics. Individuality is frowned upon. Conformity is demanded. The wheel of the institution is massive and unfeeling, designed to crush any part of a student that does not fit its mold. At first, Hans tries to be the model student he has always been. He throws himself into his studies, driven by the familiar, cold fear of falling behind. He excels, but the environment is stifling. The competition is fierce, and the teachers are distant and severe. He feels utterly isolated, cut off from nature and from any real human connection. His headaches return, and he struggles with a profound sense of loneliness. Then he encounters Hermann Heilner. Heilner is Hans's complete opposite. He is not a diligent student. He is a free spirit, a poet, a budding genius with a fiery disdain for authority. Heilner values art, beauty, and personal feeling above all else. He sees the seminary not as an opportunity, but as a suffocating prison for the mind and soul. He openly mocks the teachers and the petty rules they enforce. Hans is immediately and powerfully drawn to Heilner. He has never met anyone who dares to think, let alone speak, in this way. Heilner represents everything Hans has been forced to bury within himself. A powerful, complex friendship blossoms between them. It is an intense, almost romantic bond, a meeting of two isolated souls. Heilner introduces Hans to forbidden poetry and new ideas. He encourages Hans to think for himself, to question the system, to value his own soul above the school's expectations. For the first time in his life, Hans begins to explore his own identity. He allows himself to slacken his studies. He takes unauthorized walks in the woods with Heilner. He begins to dream again. This friendship is the first true joy Hans has ever known. This relationship, however, is seen as deeply dangerous by the school authorities. The headmaster and teachers view Heilner as a corrupting influence, a sickness that threatens to infect their star pupil, Hans. They do everything in their power to separate the two boys, using threats, public shaming, and extra work. Hans is torn apart. He deeply admires Heilner's courage and his spirit. But he is terrified of the consequences of rebellion. The fear of failure, drilled into him since childhood, is still his master. He lacks the fundamental strength to defy the system that has defined his entire life. He tries to pull away from Heilner to save his academic standing, but this betrayal of his friend and of himself fills him with guilt. The conflict reaches its breaking point. Heilner, refusing to be broken by the school's relentless discipline, finally runs away. He is caught, brought back in disgrace, and formally expelled, dismissed as a degenerate and a failure. Hans is devastated. He has lost his only friend, the only person who saw and valued his true self. He is also consumed by shame for not being strong enough to stand by him. Left alone, Hans spirals into a complete collapse. The academic pressure he once managed to bear now becomes an impossible weight. He cannot focus. The Greek and Latin texts blur before his eyes. His grades, once stellar, plummet. He suffers a severe nervous breakdown, a total physical and mental exhaustion. The school, which once paraded him as their greatest success, now sees him as a problem, an embarrassment. He is no longer useful to the system. The wheel has rolled over him and found him wanting. After a few months, he is deemed unfit, a nervous case, and sent back home in disgrace. His return to his hometown is a quiet catastrophe. He is no longer the prodigy, he is the failure. The townsfolk who once celebrated him now avert their eyes, whispering behind his back. His father is deeply disappointed and silently ashamed, treating Hans with a cold distance. The path of academics, the only path he was ever shown, is now permanently closed. Lost, broken, and with no sense of self, Hans must find a new place in the world. He is put to work as a mechanic's apprentice. He trades his books of poetry and Greek philosophy for wrenches and greasy rags. He enters the world of manual labor, a world for which he is completely unsuited. His new life is a different kind of prison. He is too sensitive for the crude jokes and rough manners of his fellow apprentices. He is too physically weak for the demanding labor. He is an outcast, trapped in a void. He belongs neither to the intellectual world that rejected him, nor to the working-class world he cannot join. He is a ghost in his own life. The novel concludes with devastating tragedy. One evening, after a day spent drinking with his colleagues, a desperate and failed attempt to fit in, to feel something, to belong, Hans walks home along the river. He does not arrive. The next day, his body is found drowned in the water. The narrative leaves the exact cause ambiguous. It is unclear if he slipped and fell, weakened by alcohol and profound despair, or if he actively chose to end his unbearable suffering. But Hermann Hesse makes the true cause clear. Hans Giebentath was not killed by the water alone. He was crushed, slowly, deliberately, and inevitably, beneath the wheel of a rigid, unfeeling society that prized intellectual conformity and hollow success above the needs of the individual human spirit.